Hey everyone. So in this video, I wanted to talk about the importance of doing hard things, or more so the philosophy of why you should love to do hard things, at least my take on it. And this all stems from a comment from one of my professors that I heard yesterday or last week. This professor, it was a one-on-one conversation, and we were discussing the pathway to become a clinical psychologist or to get into a PhD program. And she mentioned how financially expensive it could be depending on the program. I'm here in New York, and so I'd be looking at some of the programs up here, and some of them are upwards of around $200,000, so definitely not cheap. And as we were talking about this, prior to that point in the conversation, I mentioned to her that I have a pattern of loving to do difficult things, which is part of my motivation for wanting to get a PhD in clinical psychology. I joined the Marine Corps when I was in undergrad. I pledged a fraternity. I currently am running marathons, and not just running marathons, but trying to become faster every year. And I would say ever since high school, hanging out with some of my friends and peers doing JROTC, there was just always this competitive spirit where we wanted to push each other. We wanted to be faster than one another, or see who could do the most pull-ups, or some stupid things where it'd be cold outside and we would see who could endure the cold weather with the least amount of layers on. So it's definitely not the most productive all the time, but still, for a long time, even with my brothers growing up, I can remember wanting to be competitive and wanting to do more in most respects in life. And so that's always been a motivation for me. And as I'm speaking with this professor, I let her know that I have this pattern of just wanting to do difficult things. And I also have interests in people, and some of the mentors, or for lack of better terms, the mentors, i.e., people and authors that I've read, they've all been clinicians. Jordan Peterson, Ian McGilchrist, Carl Rogers, Carl Jung. And so it just seemed like, currently, it just seems like a natural path, or at least an opportunity that I could see myself going for. And if I apply widely to different programs and I don't get in, okay, that's fine. I pivot and do something else. But I have this pattern of wanting to do difficult things. And when this professor brought up the topic of financial investment, she said something along the lines of, you're going to need more than a desire to do something difficult to get into this program, or to make it through the program. I can't remember which one it was, but to summarize, the context was about how expensive this program can be, and also how it is a commitment. It might be 4 or 5 years, and you need something more other than the love of doing hard things to make it through. And that comment stuck out to me for a few reasons, and I thought about it on my run this morning, and I thought I'd make a video about it. And here's some of the thoughts that came up. I think I disagree with what she's saying. I don't think that, well, let me try to explicate. I'm not trying to straw man her argument. I definitely understand that she's making the point that you're going to make a large commitment, and so perhaps you need to, maybe the way I came off to her was as if I'm saying I kind of just have a hobby of doing difficult things. Marathon running, it's kind of just a hobby. You don't have to do it. Reading and writing, reading difficult books, trying to sort your thoughts out with writing, you don't have to do those things. They're just hobbies. And so maybe she took it, and maybe I conveyed it in this way, that I like to do difficult things kind of on the side, and that's not really like what my career is going to be about. And to the degree that I can take ownership of that, when I think of a motivation for doing difficult things and a love for doing difficult things, I trace that down to a fundamental motivation. And what do I mean by that? I've come to learn over the past few years that there are a few different primordial motivations that we all have. So one of them would be pleasure. These motivations, they orient your perceptions and behaviors in the world. And so when you look out into the world and you see your goals and you think about how you're going to plan your day, your primary motivations are what tell you what your goals should be and how you should act to get those goals. And so one primary motivation is pleasure. This could be like sex or just good food or, alcohol, something you just want to feel good. So that could be a primary motivator. Now, another primary motivator, and this is definitely something that I'm hearing a lot about in grad school, is power. It's your drive. If your primary motivation is power, then your drive to get up in the morning and go out into the world is to assert your dominance and to obtain as many resources as you can and to ascend the social status hierarchy. Now, another motivator, and this is something that I'm trying to tie into what I'm talking about here, would be meaning. And when I say meaning, what do I say by meaning? What do I mean by meaning? It's very difficult to put into words, but if I had to, I would say it's the experience of being in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. I like to think that everyone has a conscience, and I like to think that our consciousness tells us what we're interested in, and it pushes us to go and do things. And it says, oh, you should do this today, you should do that. And I would also layer on a moral element onto our consciousness. So one of the things that your consciousness does is it tells you what you should do. And I think another thing that it does, it tells you what you shouldn't do. And so with that kind of polarity, meaning is when you're doing the things that you should be doing according to your conscience, and when you're not doing the things that you shouldn't be doing according to your conscience. And that's kind of a narrow path that guides you. Another way of framing all of that, when I'm talking about meaning, would be doing difficult things. And so when I think about marathon running, why do I want to be a marathon runner? Why am I running every single day? Well, Monday through Saturday, Why am I running 70 miles a week? Why am I spending money on these supplements and, nutrition and shoes? Well, one of the reasons is that I want to be able to live a good life as long as I can when I'm, 80, 90, and 90 years old. I want to be able to go on walks with my wife that I will have then. I want to be able to hang out with my grandkids and play with them. So that can be a pleasure aspect. But the more terrifying motivator and reason for why I'm trying to be physically fit and why I train for marathons is that I don't want the opposite of that. That vision of being able to walk up a flight of stairs and to be able to, have sex. The opposite of that would be my family and friends having to take care of me and having to sacrifice their time and energy and finances to keep me alive because I made some poor decisions and I didn't take care of my health. And so, given that goal, given those two visions, what is meaningful for me every single day is being able to demonstrate my gratitude for my current health and demonstrate my emphasis of wanting to maintain that health over the longest period of time is going out and working out. And the days that I don't work out, I stretch and I make sure that I lock in my nutrition and I prepare to be able to come back well rested and recovered for the next day. And definitely not perfect. I miss some workouts. I sleep in and I'm definitely undisciplined at times, and that's when the negative consciousness comes out and tells me like, hey man, you got to get back on your game. And when I do the things that I'm supposed to do, that are in line with my goals, it feels good. It feels intrinsically rewarding for me. And there's also a social factor because to the degree that I can inspire other people, or even just in my circle of 4 or 5 friends, and when they see that, oh, he woke up at 4 o'clock and got after it. Okay, I don't have an excuse. I can go do this too. Well, that's all the better. What was I saying about this? Oh, so we went over the different primary motivations that people can have. Pleasure, power, meaning. Those aren't all of them. Those are just the ones that come to my mind. For me, doing difficult things is not just a hobby, and it's not just to try to say that I'm better than other people. It is associated with the necessary suffering that creates meaning in life. Now, let's say you don't have any motivations, you don't have any motivators, and you have no goals. What are you left with? In a sense, you're still left with suffering. Like if you did nothing because you weren't motivated to do anything, you had no goals, and you just lie there. Well, entropy is still a thing, and so you would just starve and suffer and die. Now, some people would say, maybe there's some people out there who want that, or maybe that is their goal. I would say, I would love to have a conversation with those people. Generally speaking, I would say they're still going through suffering. And so, why do I say all of that? There is no getting around suffering. There's no life without it. And so there's different ways that you can approach contending with suffering, so that way you can become better and become more adaptive and just be a better person, and at least not make your life and the life of those around you more miserable than it has to be. And one of the attitudes that you can have to face suffering is one of leaning forward and voluntarily confronting it. And that's what I mean when I say that I love to do difficult things. And you can, again, when I was having this conversation with this professor, perhaps I should have explicated a little bit more. Maybe I felt like it wasn't necessary. I could just let it slide. But I just noticed that in my conscience, I still was thinking about that. And I was like, why did I not? Why did that bother me, that she felt that the motivation to do hard things is not enough to do something such as getting a PhD? And it could just be simple, a difference of opinions and different paradigms. But definitely want to make this video to try to see if I can explicate that a little bit further, because when I think about doing hard things, when I think about the people that I admire, they are people who, at the surface level, have accomplished things that only a minority of people have done. And there are many reasons for this. One of them, in my opinion, is that they have this capacity and attitude for seeking out those things that are most difficult and pushing themselves to accomplish those tasks, or disciplining themselves in a manner to where they don't do the things that everyone else is doing, that leads down a path of unnecessary suffering. And so an example of that latter one is, look, most people in America, let's say, don't work out. Most people in America don't read. And of those people who read, most of them don't read hard books. Very similar when it comes to working out. Like I said, most people don't work out. Of those people who do work out, most of them don't work out in terms of trying to train for a marathon. So if there's any definition of doing something difficult, a part of that definition for me would be doing the things that most people don't do. And again, it can get kind of complicated because you have to have those goals. And I'm not saying that that's a necessary or sufficient condition in terms of general consensus about what people do. You have to know when it's appropriate to follow the crowd and when it's appropriate to not follow the crowd. But let's say specifically in the realm of fitness, I don't want to follow the crowd because I see, and I have seen, and it's probably something that's always been around, your decisions that you make over the course of your lifetime obviously add up. And to the degree that you're acting for the short term at the cost of the long term, well, that's still you. If you're still going to be alive and you're still going to experience those years, in your 50s and 60s, and you're in your 20s right now, you have to act in a manner that takes into account all of the yous that are going to exist across, different, across the longest time span. And so to me, just because the crowd, to the degree that the crowd does this, pursues the short term because it is easier compared to delaying your gratification and sacrificing for the long term, that doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. And so when I say that I love to do hard things, it's because I believe that doing the things that are most difficult, as long as they're aligned with your vision and your goals, will make your life meaningful. And that's how you keep your consciousness regulated. It's interesting, I'm speaking of your consciousness as if it's something different, but that's how you engage in dialogue, in a productive dialogue with your consciousness. When it tells you to do the things that you should do, okay, you go do them. Even though it's hard, you go do them. And then when your consciousness when you become self-conscious because you know that you're maybe about to be tempted to do something that you know you shouldn't do, you listen to it and you don't do it. And I know that's still hard as well, but no matter what, if you have these goals for a long-term future, that's better than where you're currently at. And if you can envision a sort of hell in the long term that will manifest if you don't do things that you know you're supposed to do today, then it's important to put in the work and do the things that are difficult, which typically come down to embodying those habits that are aligned with your consciousness, positively rewarding you for doing things that you should do and avoiding those things that you know that you shouldn't do. That was a rant, and that was all over the place. Let me know what you guys think. Let's see. Key questions. Should you love to do things just because they're hard? What in life is meaningful for you? That's not a question. Final question. What is the primary motivation in your life? All right, I'm going to end it there. Thanks for listening, guys.